Hello everyone, thank you for tuning in to another video. If you haven't heard, there are some massive changes coming to the Retribution Paladin spec in the upcoming patch 10.0.7. This was announced about 2 or 3 days ago, so I'm a little bit late in covering this, but I thought I'd make a quick video covering what Blizzard have in store for this spec, as really you probably read the forums, play with a Ret Paladins yourself. Maybe you play one as a main or an alt. You will experience a lot of crying and QQing from these players, as the Ret spec doesn't feel like it does much outside of their damage when it comes to damage. And on the defensive side, it does feel like the spec is just very weak and lackluster. It's kind of a wheelchair class. But let's quickly go over what they have in store and see if these changes are going to be something that is worth noting. So, first off, they start off saying, well met. We're doing a substantial rework to the Retribution talent tree in patch 10.0.7. Rebuilding the Retribution tree from the ground up means significant changes ahead. However, the talent tree itself will not be available on our first PTR build, so initial testing on the PTR will be missing important context. Nonetheless, we'd like to share our major goals for Retribution with you. So, first off, they've got button bloat. Retribution Paladin currently have a fairly large number of abilities, and some of these feel unnecessary and inefficient. We're working to tone this down and have a more focused set of abilities and cooldowns. So, I I think being a Ret Paladin, you like having a few options in what you're doing. Whether that, I mean, as the class already, just by the way it's designed, you're a very nice support class. You have bops, you have sacrifices, you have freedoms, you have sanks, you have a lot of tools to kind of help your party and yourself stay alive or become more aggressive. So I feel like naturally, being a paladin, you will have a lot of binds and a lot to do and track as the game goes on, as your role in your team is very crucial. So I don't mind as a Retribution Paladin having a lot of buttons. Obviously not too much to the point where it gets a bit confusing, but not too little to the point where it's like you might as well just reroll a DH and play on a Wii controller or something like that. But cool. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what exactly they target with this one. Moving on to stacking modifiers. There are currently several talents and abilities that provide stacking bonuses, which can make for a confusing and messy playstyle that deals extreme burst damage, but in return leaves your core abilities feeling unsatisfying and undertoned. We intend to significantly change this. We want your core abilities to feel good and powerful when used in all situations. This doesn't mean we're reducing all elements of burst damage, but we do want to make bursts more purposeful and deliberate, while also allowing options that provide sustained damage. I love this change so much. As I just said previously, Ret Paladin does amazing burst damage during wings and it's all its cooldowns. It's one of the highest DPS classes during that window. But outside of that, it's just you're not doing too much. You have a go every minute outside of wings with Seraphim, Final Reckoning, and Divine Toll. You can put out some decent damage, decent pressure. But outside of that, your Blade of Justice, Crusader Strikes, Templar's Verdict, or Final Verdict, if you're playing this that talent, just don't feel like it's impacting the game as much as other classes, you know? Outside of cooldowns, DHs can hit upwards of 80, 100k death sweeps with Essence Break, and it just feels like you get outclassed. I mean, obviously as a hybrid spec, you're not meant to have insane constant damage because you're losing that to get your healing and your support, and that's what makes the class so great. But it does feel like it would be better off to move in a direction where you as a paladin, as a retribution paladin specifically, can do something outside of your cooldowns. So I do like this change. I do like the kind of noticing like, hey guys, we see that really you're not doing too much outside of your wings, so let's try and fix that. Love it. Moving on to survivability. Retribution Paladins currently have one of the highest death rates across all forms of content. Facts. For a plate wearing class with hybrid healing, this doesn't feel right. I agree. We're looking to strengthen them through a mixture of passive bonus and improvements to active abilities and cooldowns, while keeping the degree of challenge that results from being a while keeping the degree of challenge that results from being a melee-based spec. I think if you play a Ret Paladin, if you've played against a Ret Paladin, you can agree with this, that Ret Paladins just fall over after a certain point. Your hybrid healing is very, very what's the word? It's inconsistent just because of how dampening works. You find a lot of Rets using the lay on hands first before bubble. Just because it gets more value earlier in the game, and after lay on hands, you know, you have to wait 30 seconds for your divine to use your divine protection, your bubble, not divine protection, sorry, your bubble. And just outside of that, you have your Shield of Vengeance, which recently got a buff to 1 minute CD down, well, up from 1 minute 30. So that's also pretty nice, but it still has not helped the problem of Rets just falling over and being so squishy. No other melee in this game currently has this much. It feels this squishy. Arms Warrior recently got Ignore Pain. Before that, they did feel quite squishy. And I've spoken to a few of them, and they feel a lot more safe. But as a Ret Paladin, after you use your freedom and your pony, you can't really leave the pillar. If you leave the pillar, you're caught in the open, and there's nothing that you could do. You have to pop something to either get back to the pillar or go offensive with your team. It's just it feels really bad. It feels really bad. So I like this change. I like that they're noticing, like, hey, you guys are dying a lot. Let's try and change or tune something or introduce something to help you guys survive or have more options to help you live a little bit longer. So I do like this very much. Moving on to maneuverability, we recognize that there's an issue here, and we hope to make some improvements. However, we want to set clear expectations. Ret Paladin should not expect to gain mobility should not expect to gain the mobility of rogues. I mean, why not? I'm joking. But I like this. They are noticing that, hey, you guys are a little bit immobile. You're a wheelchair class pretty much. And there needs to be something done to help you guys reach your target or get back to the pillar or do something along those lines. I reminisce onto a time, because I was very active in Cataclysm, and that patch, Ret Paladins felt like decently mobile for a melee plate wearing class. It felt very mobile because you had a talent called Long Arm of the Law that when you judgment, I can't remember if it had a distance requirement, so you had to be a minimum of X amount of yards away from the paladin before they judgment you. But basically, when they use judgment, they would get a 40% speed increase for 4 seconds. That to me feels like something that would really help Reds at the moment. I don't think they need much more beyond that. Also, maybe with Cleanse bringing back magic, not magic spell, sorry. Cleanse bringing back Root/Snare dispel. That might be a good change that they might be looking to reintroduce to the spec. I would really love to see that, actually, because it's not OP to the point where they can just spam it all constantly. It does have a mana requirement. You can spam deep, like it obviously can only dispel one thing at a time. It's not going to dispel everything at once. Obviously, when it comes to poisons, it gets rid of everything. But when it comes to magic debuffs, that's where it's only removing one at a time. So maybe that could be something that they're looking to introduce. We'll have to wait and see. Moving on to utility, the last point that they've got for us here. The changes that Dragonflight brought to Retribution have caused some conflict for players. forcing the Ret Paladin to choose between providing benefits to their groups or benefiting themselves. This choice can be interesting, but due to the way that this has historically worked for Paladins, it hasn't felt right in Dragonflight. So we're looking to make changes here that allow you to feel good and improve your own damage while also providing the group benefits that you're used to. We're also looking into additional utility improvements for Paladin during the 10.0.7 test cycle. We're looking forward to hearing your feedback to the points above, as well as anything else about Ret that you'd like to share. Thank you. So I'm just gonna quickly skim over this one more time. Forcing Ret to choose between providing benefits to their groups or benefiting themselves. I'm not too sure what they mean by providing benefits to their group or benefiting themselves, because I guess in a way where, like, if you use a big cooldown on somebody else, like your bop or your sack. I mean, obviously sack is better for other people. Your bop, that's not a good example. So your bop or your lay on hands or freedom. If you're not playing Unbound Freedom, that PvP talent, then it feels like you get punished because of how poor your survivability / mobility are. Maybe that's what they mean. But I feel like utility wise, Ret Paladin is not in a bad spot. I feel like Ret Paladin has some great utility for their team and for themselves. Historically, I don't think anyone has complained about the utility. I don't think anybody on the forums is complaining about Ret is too OP, Ret can sank my stuns, Ret can bop my blinds, or Ret can freedom for 10 I can't remember how long it lasts for, but Ret, like, no one's complaining about that. I don't think so. I'm not 100% sure what they mean by this paragraph on utility. So if you have your own thoughts about what it could mean, leave it down in the comments. But we'll have to wait and see what comes in this next patch. It's looking very exciting. I'm really excited to see what they come up with. I used to main Ret Paladin myself back a few years back, and so if these changes are something that just has revived the spec in terms of its playability, its viability, and it's how fun it is, I may pick this back up as a serious character again. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. Let me know if you, as a Paladin player, as a Ret Paladin player, if you're looking forward to these changes, how you're feeling about them, if they miss anything, if you may add something to what they've said down in the comments, and I'll catch you in the next one. Take care.